My mother is the cannon fodder supporting female character in a sweet historical romance novel. My father is the aloof imperial astrologer, the second male lead who silently protects the female protagonist in that sweet historical romance. I'm their daughter who transmigrated into this world with memories intact. For a cannon fodder supporting character to end up with the second male lead, naturally it couldn't have happened without the female protagonist's matchmaking. The female lead is the true princess of Lingwang Manor who was accidentally switched at birth. My mother is the daughter of the Prime Minister and was betrothed to the young lord of the Duke's household, who is the male lead, but when the female lead appeared, her quirky and unconventional demeanor, so different from my mother who was raised in seclusion, instantly captured the male lead's attention. Even the imperial astrologer took a liking to her. In the end, the male lead broke off his engagement with my mother and immediately proposed to the female lead. My mother had her engagement broken off, which damaged her reputation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. The female lead, feeling guilty for taking the female supporting character's marriage opportunity, introduced her good friend, the second male lead, to the female supporting character. She even considered herself the female supporting character's good sister and, wanting what was best for her, urged her good friend to propose. No one dared to refuse the Grand Preceptor's marriage proposal. Moreover, with my mother's tarnished reputation at the time, when the Grand Preceptor personally came to propose, her maternal family naturally agreed with great joy. My mother was utterly disheartened at the time. Marrying anyone would do, so she just went ahead and married my father. On their wedding night, nothing happened. My mother had already seen through the vanity of life, and my father, that hopeless fool, had eyes only for the female lead. As for how they ended up with me, it was because the female lead got married. My father got dead drunk, the two of them made a mistake, and that's how my mother became pregnant with me. At the end of the story, the female lead married her beloved in a grand procession with 10 miles of red dowry. That same year, both the female lead and the supporting female character gave birth to daughters. Knowing the plot that had unfolded between them, I disliked my father from the moment I was born. This manifested in specific ways. When he tried to feed me, I would deliberately spit it all over him. During diaper changes, I'd conveniently pee on him, situations my mother never encountered. One moment I'd be all smiles for my beautiful mother, and the next, the moment I saw him, I'd open my mouth wide and wail. Not a single tear would be shed, but the howling was absolutely non-negotiable. Over time, my mother realized I was a little troublemaker when it came to my father, yet when she was the one taking care of me, I behaved perfectly well. Still, she didn't dwell on it too much after all. When she was pregnant with me, my father, the imperial preceptor, hardly paid her any attention, being too preoccupied with the pregnant female lead. A daughter shares a deep bond with her mother, so it's only natural she wouldn't like this father. Every time I misbehaved, she would affectionately pinch my little nose and scold me playfully, calling me a naughty child. My father was rather thick-skinned and couldn't tell I was doing it on purpose. He just thought he hadn't taken good care of me, so he redoubled his efforts. Today, just after my wet nurse had fed me, mother was holding me and patting my back. Father, the imperial preceptor, walked in and reached out toward mother. "Let me take her. You've worked hard taking care of Wanwan." I was perfectly content in my mother's fragrant embrace when he just snatched me away. Of course I wasn't happy about that. Just as I was about to start crying, a servant came in to announce that the Duchess had arrived. Before the host could even speak, the guest strode right in, accompanied by a wet nurse carrying a child and several maidservants. When the Duchess saw me in the state preceptor's arms and noticed that aside from my mother and one wet nurse, there was no one else in the room, she spoke as if casually. "Mu Jin, why is it just you and the wet nurse taking care of the child?" Then she chided my father in a reproachful tone. "Leng Yanchen, how could you let your wife work so hard? Murong, you assigned 6 maids just to take care of me and the child so I wouldn't tire. You should also show more care for Mu Jin and the child." When the female lead uttered the names of the male lead and second male lead, it made my scalp tingle. I couldn't help but shudder. The names reeked of such outdated clichés. What was the female lead's name again? Ah, right, Yun Qianqian. One named Lung, one named Murong. one named Yun, compared to them. My mother's surname Shen is still alright. Wait a minute. So now I share the same surname as my state preceptor father, Leng. I was lost in my thoughts, spacing out. But when my state preceptor father held me, he felt me tremble. Normally, when he held me, my cries were loud and vigorous. Yet today I remained quiet in his arms. He immediately noticed something was wrong, seeing my unfocused gaze. His heart panicked, clearly. I was frightened. My mother grew anxious too, stepping forward to cradle me in her arms with concern. Usually, those who cared for me spoke to me gently and softly, nothing like Yun Qianqian's loud shouting today. Yun Qianqian remained completely oblivious, continuing her incessant chatter until her daughter began to cry. The crying snapped me out of my thoughts. Dazed, I lifted my head to locate the source of the sound, only to see the female lead's daughter wailing incessantly in the nursemaid's arms. Seeing my current state, my father could no longer restrain himself and said coldly, "Madam Duke, my Wanwan isn't feeling well. I must ask you to take your noisy child and leave." To be honest, compared to my own tantrums when bothering my father, the female lead's daughter's crying was actually quite mild. But what a novelty, the imperial preceptor actually dared to show displeasure toward the female lead. Yun Qianqian heard someone speak of her daughter like that, coupled with Leng Yanquan's sudden change in attitude, leaving her feeling not just angry but also deeply wronged. The Leng Yanquan of the past, though stern-faced, had always treated her differently. But ever since he got married, everything had changed. This stark contrast unsettled her. Yet she didn't voice her thoughts. Instead, she simply picked up her daughter and strode away, confident that Leng Yanquan would be the first to yield. She had even forgotten that she came here because of a quarrel with Huang Fuyu, intending to stay with Leng Yanquan for a few days. But in truth, her departure didn't cause much of a stir in the state preceptor's residence. Her parents' attention was entirely focused on me. The state preceptor, my father, even had the steward take his waste token to the palace to summon Hu, the imperial physician skilled in pediatric medicine, and Liu, the renowned gynecologist, to examine both my mother and me. I was held by the wet nurse for the examination. While physician Liu took my mother's pulse, only my father paced restlessly back and forth. After examining my condition, physician Hu stroked his beard and said, "Rest assured, state preceptor, your daughter is perfectly fine." How can she be fine? Normally when I hold her, she cries so loudly. Today she didn't make a sound at all. She must have been frightened. Father, is it possible that me being as quiet as a chicken when held is actually the normal state? Physician Hu already said she's fine. What are you still worried about? Don't tell me you're hoping something happens to Wanwan. After finishing the pulse diagnosis, mother took me from the wet nurse's arms. I smiled at my beautiful mother, my eyes crinkling with joy. "Madam, I've never thought that way." The state preceptor father immediately shook his head in denial. After the imperial physician left, father the state preceptor still couldn't rest easy. He ordered servants to prepare a ritual bath and incense burning so he could pray for my well-being. Normally, only matters of national importance warranted such elaborate preparations, yet now it was all for his daughter. After father the state preceptor departed, mother placed me on the bed to play while she pondered physician Liu's earlier words. She knew Leng Yanquan was also skilled in medicine, but she didn't realize that every single prenatal herbal prescription she'd taken since becoming pregnant had been personally formulated by Leng Yanquan, who then went himself to the imperial hospital to fetch the medicines. She hadn't even noticed when he'd taken her pulse. Moreover, during her difficult labor when giving birth to Wanwan, that faint lotus fragrance she'd smelled while drifting in and out of consciousness, she'd only ever caught that scent on Leng Yanquan. It seemed Leng Yanquan did care about their child, at least somewhat. I have no idea what my mother is thinking. Recently, my teeth have been growing, making them itch. So I'm gnawing on something while watching her. My mother's face could truly be described as one that topples cities and ruins states. Willow leaf eyebrows, bright eyes with pearly white teeth, and a perfectly straight nose bridge. Just look at her. Just look at her. These qualities of hers. My father isn't bad looking either, after all. These two are the pinnacle of beauty in this novel. As their daughter, I must be quite good looking too. I can't even imagine how beautiful I'll become in the future. Just thinking about it makes me happy. I was so engrossed that I didn't even notice myself drooling while munching on something. When my father entered, he saw his daughter drooling over his wife, while his wife seemed lost in thought, amused. He picked up his daughter. I was utterly enchanted by my mother's beauty when I felt myself being picked up. Turning my head, I saw an equally handsome face. All right, my father is quite dashing too. But that doesn't stop me from disliking him. The thought of his past relationship with the female lead makes me so angry that I throw the saliva-covered, teeth-marked object in my hand right at his face. So what if he's the imperial preceptor, second only to the emperor and above 10,000 others? He still couldn't compete with the protagonist's halo, and he kept neglecting my mother for that female lead. Pa, what a scumbag, though all they heard were my incoherent babbles. Seeing his daughter regain her usual vitality, Leng Yanchen also breathed a sigh of relief, taking out a handkerchief from his sleeve to wipe my mouth. Watching me constantly show disdain for father, mother couldn't help but laugh aloud. Hearing mother's laughter, both the imperial preceptor father and I turned to look at her. Mother was naturally beautiful, but now with her radiant smile, she looked even more stunningly gorgeous. But I wasn't the only one stunned. My imperial preceptor father, holding me with his devastatingly handsome face, wore the expression of a dumbfounded goose as he gazed dazedly at my mother. All right, now I'm annoyed again. I slapped my palm against his face, pushing it aside, and started babbling nonsense. What are you looking at? Go stare at your female lead. My mother's this beautiful, only I get to look. Wanwan, do you want to play with daddy? His words left me at a loss for how to react. My father's train of thought was truly unmatched. Suppressing the urge to roll my eyes, I reached out to my mother, wanting her to hold me. Shen Mujin stood up to come carry me, but as luck would have it, he stepped on the object I'd just thrown at Leng Yanchen's face. Losing his balance, he stumbled forward. Leng Yanchen caught me with one arm while his other hand reached out. Pulling Shen Mujin into his embrace, I touched my mother's face, babbling with worry. Leng Yanchen also spoke urgently. Be careful, madam. Apart from that drunken night with Shen Mujin, this was the only other time Leng Yanchen had been so intimately close to her. With the beauty in his arms, he no longer knew how to compose himself. Already thin-skinned, he now blushed crimson all the way to the back of his ears. But Shen Mujin merely uttered a faint thank you before taking a few steps back, then patted me reassuringly. Wanwan, mother is fine. Wanwan should sleep now, and husband, you should rest too. Shen Mujin took me from Leng Yanchen's arms, effectively dismissing him. I glanced at my father, who looked lost and dejected, then at my mother, who remained aloof. Before I could express anything, I drifted off to sleep to the sound of her gentle lullaby. Another new day. Another day of me disapproving of my father. Another month passed, and the palace held a banquet, where the Grand Preceptor and all the high-ranking officials would attend. In other words, the male lead, the second male lead, and the female lead would gather under the same roof once again. Although their stories had already concluded, and the villainess had long since met her end, my mother, though merely a minor supporting character, couldn't be sure if there might still be some lingering effects. I had no desire to attend the palace banquet, but my parents didn't trust leaving me home alone, so, after my mother dressed me up, I was dragged along with them, in the carriage. Our family of 3 sat together, both of them dressed in elegant, understated robes and gowns, while I was decked out in red and green like a New Year's painting doll. Yet, these two saw absolutely nothing wrong with it. I protested, but to no avail. Upon entering the palace, before the banquet had even begun, my father, the state preceptor, was summoned by the emperor's men. So my mother took me to the palace hall reserved for the ladies. When my mother and I appeared, the lively hall instantly fell silent, though soon after, groups of people began whispering to their closest friends. After all, those affairs of my father's had caused quite a stir in the capital back then. My mother was once one of the most distinguished noble ladies in the capital, the Prime Minister's daughter with an excellent marriage prospect. Yet, her engagement was broken off. Though she's now married to the imperial preceptor, everyone heard it was Yun Chanxian who persuaded him to propose. Even this child was conceived when the imperial preceptor, drunk, mistook Shen Mujin for Yun Chanxian. In the past, Shen Mujin always outshined them, but now that she's fallen on hard times, They couldn't help but feel a secret satisfaction. My mother paid them no mind. Holding me in her arms, she settled in a quieter corner, while my curious eyes darted around the room, taking in the crowd, those people whispering among themselves while glancing our way. "I've got my eye on you. Where's the female lead? Why hasn't she shown up yet?" I was still looking for the female lead when I heard the eunuch outside announce, "Her Majesty the Queen has arrived." As soon as the words fell, a dignified and elegant noblewoman entered, surrounded by a group of maids. My mother, holding me, also bowed in greeting. The personal maid glanced around the hall, and upon seeing my mother and me, whispered a few words to the noblewoman and pointed in our direction. The noblewoman frowned slightly at the sight of us and walked over. "Mujin, I've told you there's no need for formal greetings when you see me." The beautiful matron spoke words of reproach, yet her tone carried intimate familiarity. This empress seems quite close with my mother, since the novel didn't provide detailed descriptions of canon fodder female supporting characters. I'm not entirely clear about the relationship between the Empress and Shen Mujin. "Your Majesty, etiquette must not be neglected." Shen Mujin still refused to rise. The Empress remained silent, merely giving her personal maid a meaningful glance. The maid immediately understood and stepped forward to help Shen Mujin to her feet. "Our mistress has been talking about you and the young miss since yesterday, eagerly awaiting today's meeting. See. She couldn't wait any longer and came straight here to find you. We're deeply honored by Her Highness's kindness." My mother, holding me, was about to perform the ceremonial greeting when the Empress, disregarding protocol, stepped forward to stop Shen Mujin's gesture. "Mujin, don't be so formal with me." The Empress smiled with perfect grace, patting my mother's hand. Then, a slightly authoritative voice sounded. "Ladies, please rise." "Thank you, Your Majesty." It seems the Empress and my mother truly share a close relationship. Her earlier actions were clearly meant to admonish those noblewomen. The Empress led my mother into the inner chamber, while the other noblewomen remained in the outer hall. "Shen Mujin, when will you ever change that rigid temperament of yours? If I hadn't come today, who knows how many times they would have stabbed you in the back." The moment the Empress entered the inner chamber, her dignified demeanor instantly crumbled. Yes, thank you, Your Majesty, for standing up for me." Shen Mujin's face broke into a smile seeing her friend like this. "You'd better remember that." After scolding the elder one, the Empress turned her gaze toward me. "Is this Wanwan, like jade carved from powder, so adorable?" As she spoke, the Empress took out a jade pendant from her bosom and placed it before me. "Little Wanwan, this is Aunt Min's gift for our first meeting. Do you like it, Shumin? You've already given so much when Wanwan was born, how could that be the same?" "This is my first time meeting Wanwan." Afraid Shen Mujin might say something more, the Empress directly hung the jade pendant around my neck. I picked up the jade pendant. Its quality was priceless. I looked at the pendant, then at Mother. "Aunt Minute is Mother's closest childhood friend. Since she's given it to you, you should keep it." Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. From now on, I'm a wealthy woman too. Wanwan is truly adorable. In the future, don't end up like your mother and father, both being such silent types. After saying this, the Empress realized she had spoken out of turn and looked guiltily at Shen Mujin. "Shumin, this is my own choice." As the eldest daughter of the family, having her engagement broken off had even affected her younger siblings' marriage prospects. Leng Yanchen was the imperial preceptor. This was already her marrying above her station. It's all that Murong Yu's doing. But now that his household is in such turmoil, he must be seething with frustration. The Empress became animated at this topic and proceeded to tell Shen Mujin all about the Murong family's affairs. After Yun Chanxian and Murong Yu got married, they indeed enjoyed a period of sweet and harmonious life together, which became even more blissful after she became pregnant. Even the concubines his mother had arranged for him were all sent away by him. However, after a woman becomes pregnant, marital relations are forbidden, and Murong Yu was still young and vigorous. Those concubines were eventually sent back to him, though all of this was kept hidden from Yun Chanxian. But the secret didn't last long before Yun Chanxian found out. Upon learning the truth, she caused such an uproar that the entire duke's residence was thrown into chaos. The distress even affected her pregnancy, and aside from summoning imperial physicians from the palace, The duke's residents even went so far as to invite Leng Yanchen for help. At that time, Shen Mujin was already 5 months pregnant, while Yun Qianqian had just reached 3 months. In the end, the 2 maidservants were beaten with rods and expelled from the mansion before Yun Qianqian finally let the matter rest. Peace was restored, and Yun Qianqian safely gave birth to a daughter. The child's full moon banquet was arranged by the duke's mother, with everything handled properly. By the time the 100-day celebration came around, it was naturally Yun Qianqian's turn as the mother to make the arrangements. Noble families had strict customs for such occasions, but Yun Qianqian, having grown up in the streets before being recognized by the Prince Ling's household, was unfamiliar with these rules. She didn't bother to ask for guidance either, and the 100-day banquet turned into a complete mess, besides inviting ministers friendly with the duke's household. She also invited many of her street friends, a well-intentioned gesture. The gifts brought by those friends were all poultry, chickens, ducks, geese, and it was said that the 100-day banquet at the duke's mansion that day was practically a sky full of fowls. The duke's mansion had turned into a marketplace. Because of this, Yun Qianqian and Murongyu had a huge fight, leading to the scene where Yun Qianqian brought her daughter to the Grand Preceptor's residence. Even the most beautiful endings can be ruined by reality. The environment Yun Qianqian grew up in simply wasn't suited to maintaining the dignity of the duke's household. Your Majesty, the hour approaches. I was thoroughly enjoying my melon snack. How could time be up already? Very well, let us proceed. The Empress rose, prompting her maidservant to immediately kneel and adjust the hem of her robe. When all preparations were complete, the Empress took my mother's hand while I was carried by her personal attendant, followed by a retinue of court ladies as we proceeded toward the main hall. From afar, the Emperor could be seen holding the Crown Prince, accompanied by his ministers, waiting at the entrance of the main hall. He could have entered directly, but he insisted on waiting for the Empress, leaving the ministers no choice but to wait as well. My father, as the imperial preceptor, naturally stood behind the Emperor, followed by the court officials led by the Prime Minister and the Duke of the State. Yun Qianqian stood beside Murongyu, holding the child, but her gaze remained fixed in the direction of my father. As we drew closer, the Queen stepped to the Emperor's side. My father took me from the maid's arms, and my mother stood together with my father. Today was an important occasion, so I didn't fuss with my father anymore and quietly let him hold me. Everyone had arrived, and the banquet officially began. My father fed me the meticulously prepared soup from the imperial kitchen, while still finding time to place dishes into my mother's bowl. This imperial kitchen's soup specially made for children is truly delicious, and it's all thanks to the Crown Prince. After all, he's only 2 months older than me. Between sips of the soup, I stole a glance at the Crown Prince. What a messy eater he was. He'd even managed to get food up his nose. I opened my mouth wide, waiting for my father to feed me, but my mother stopped him. The wet nurse already fed her before coming. Eating too much will cause indigestion. What? I only got to take a few bites of such delicious food. Tears immediately welled up in my eyes as I looked pitifully at my father. My father's initially hesitant movement paused. Wanwan, just one more bite then. This bite, I still managed to get it into my mouth. Mother watched the interaction between us, father and daughter, just smiling and scolding. What a little imp. My father also gazed at me with adoration. As for me, I was staring at that half bowl of soup on the table. To outsiders, we looked like a perfectly happy family, except this heartwarming scene was abruptly interrupted when Yun Qianqian handed her child to a maid and came over to find Leng Yanchen. Earlier, Leng Yanchen had scolded her a few times, and she had planned to wait for him to apologize, but after returning home, Murongyu coaxed her, and she happily made up with him, promptly forgetting all about Leng Yanchen. Now that she saw Leng Yanchen again, she finally remembered he hadn't come looking for her in a whole month, and that's when she couldn't sit still any longer. Brother Yanchen, are you still angry with Qianqian? This female lead, was she truly this naive? Or was she doing it on purpose? If she were unmarried and the state preceptor's father were also single, calling him brother when she was still young might have been acceptable, but now she was the Duchess, and Leng Yanchen was the current state preceptor. For her to address him as brother right away, with ambiguous words no less, And in such a public setting, wasn't this tantamount to telling everyone that her relationship with Lung Yanchen was improper? Murongnu's face had darkened. But for the sake of the Duke's household's dignity, he stepped forward to smooth things over. In the hearts of my wife and me, the state preceptor, who prays for the people and our dynasty, is like an elder brother. Though the explanation was strained, it at least managed to gloss over the incident. Noble families must maintain decorum, so Lung Yanchen nodded coldly without a word. Yun Qianqian looked displeased and seemed about to say more when Murongnu forcibly pulled her away. After returning to their seats, something else was said, though no one knew what, that left both their expressions visibly disturbed. A maidservant came to deliver a message. Her Majesty the Empress wished for my mother to bring me over for a chat. My mother nodded, picked me up, and followed the maid to the Empress's quarters. The earlier commotion had drawn the attention of many banquet guests, who were now watching our side with amusement. Lung Yanchen was the imperial preceptor. And naturally these people weren't foolish enough to offend him. My mother had taken her seat beside the Empress again, signaling to everyone that Shen Mujin had the Empress's backing. But when it came to the Duke's residence, they certainly had plenty to gossip about. Of course, none of this concerned me. I'd already had my fill of drama for the day. What I faced now was the Crown Prince attempting to stuff his fist into his own mouth, noticing me staring at his fist. He seemed to think I wanted a taste too. He pulled the saliva-covered fist from his mouth and extended it toward my lips, babbling incoherently all the while. No way. Does he mean for me to eat it too? No, mother, save me quickly. I struggled desperately in my mother's arms. Wanwan, what's wrong? My mother noticed my movements, looked down at me, and saw Crown Prince Shenyuan Yi extending his fist toward us. The Queen also noticed her son's movements and immediately knew he was once again offering someone his saliva-covered fist to taste. After all, both she and the Emperor had fallen victim to this before. She quickly stopped her son's foolish act. Yi loves to share. If you stare at whatever's in his mouth, he'll give it to you, quite like you when you were little. Shen Mujin recalled their childhood antics. Indeed, very similar. Hearing our conversation, the Emperor chimed in agreement. Xian Yuan Che, shut your mouth. The Empress secretly pinched the soft flesh at the Emperor's waist. The Emperor nearly cried out in pain. Shu minute, I was wrong. The Emperor and Empress truly have a loving relationship, with only the Empress in the harem. I really wish my mother could also find someone who loves and respects her. Even if she doesn't, I wouldn't want her to be with someone she doesn't love. But I also know that in ancient times, my mother's status destined her to live for the family. What's more, now she has me, it seems I'll need to make proper plans for mother. But right now, my top priority is to grow up quickly. I'm truly tired of pretending to be foolish and acting cute. After that palace banquet, the Empress frequently summoned my mother to the palace, sometimes keeping her there for several days. Xian Yuan Yi and I gradually became familiar with each other, though mostly it involved me watching him make various foolish mistakes. Finally, when I turned 7, I began attending palace lessons with other young masters and ladies from noble families, studying alongside the Crown Prince under the tutelage of the imperial tutor. Though I'm still quite young now, ever since demonstrating remarkable medical talent at age 6, I've been learning medicine from my father. Shenyuan Yi had it tougher. His emperor father dumped him at my dad's place for physical training when he was just 5. That's when I first discovered my father was actually accomplished in both literary and martial arts. What shocked me even more was realizing ancient martial arts truly existed. We started our education together, with me consistently outperforming him initially. By the time we studied at the Imperial Study, we became evenly matched, yet we still insisted on competing relentlessly. Over time, Yang Xianyi and I became sworn rivals, always finding fault with each other no matter what. From day one, we were constantly competing for the top spot. Today you'd earn the Grand Tutor's praise for reciting texts. Tomorrow I take first place with an essay. As long as we didn't study ourselves to death, we'd study like our lives depended on it. Our relentless drive even inspired other young masters and misses to follow suit. Until the Grand Tutor declared us the most diligent class he'd ever taught. Those taught by the Grand Tutor were all young masters and misses from noble families, each representing their powerful clans, while their fathers waged covert battles in court. Their children fought openly in the study halls, but there were exceptions. The female lead's daughter, Murong Shui, was raised to be innocent and carefree, showing little interest in her studies, yet living each day with ease. The young masters all enjoyed gathering around her. As they put it, Murong Shui was pure-hearted and sincere, unlike other noble ladies from prominent families, who were full of twists and turns in their thoughts. However, two stood apart. One was Jiang Tongming, the grandson of the imperial censor, and the other was the crown prince of the current dynasty, Xuanyi Yi. Jiang Tongming treated everyone with gentle courtesy, but I always felt this man was a smiling fox, outwardly amiable to all, yet harboring the most cunning schemes. Shen Yuanyi, as the crown prince, carried himself with the air of a future ruler every day. Though he was only 2 months older than me, and though we were both still young, he always acted with an air of premature maturity. Yet, in the end, he was still a child. Whenever we bickered, there was always a hint of childishness in him. Murong Shui, on the other hand, loved nothing more than trailing after the two of us, calling out Big Brother Crown Prince and Brother Tongming. One was sharp-tongued and sunder, another gentle yet scheming, and the last a sunny, naive little flower. Wait, no, something's off. Why does this sound so much like the setup for a novel's main characters? But what about the female supporting character? Could it be me? This realization struck me dumbfounded, making me forget I was in the middle of the Grand Tutor's lecture. The priceless purple rabbit hairbrush slipped from my hand, hitting the ground with a crisp clatter. A splitting headache overwhelmed me as my body swayed unsteadily. How could I have failed to realize this earlier? The daughter of the female lead would naturally be the female lead, and the daughter of the supporting character would inevitably become the supporting character. Before losing consciousness, I hazily saw my friend and Shen Yuanyi running toward me. When I woke up, my mother was sitting by my bedside, her face full of worry, while my father was brewing medicine for me. Seeing me awake, my mother pulled me into her arms with heartache. My Wanwan, you should live freely and as you please. Why must you exhaust yourself like this? I knew my mother was referring to my studies in medicine with my father. Sometimes I became so absorbed that I lost track of time. Mother, I'm fine, don't worry. I hugged my mother and acted coquettishly. Wanwan, this is calming soup, drink it and rest well. The imperial preceptor father came over holding a medicine bowl. Looking at the dark medicinal liquid, I inwardly refused. I took the bowl and set it aside. Father, it's too hot, I'll drink it later, giving Wanwan medicine without even letting it cool first. My mother quietly scolded my father. Mother must still be blaming father for making me study medicine. You're right, my lady, I wasn't thoughtful enough, father. The imperial preceptor who commands such respect outside and shares childhood bonds with the emperor, never lowers himself to speak so humbly to anyone except mother. Your Excellency, the Crown Prince and Miss Liu have arrived. They say they've come to see the young miss, the steward announced from outside. Show them in. I quickly replied, if I don't speak up, my parents surely won't let them come. Yes, the steward responded before turning to leave, with friends coming to visit. They won't be able to nag at me anymore. After my parents left, I breathed a sigh of relief, and the maid soon arrived with Xuanyanyi and Liu Qingyu in tow. As soon as Liu Qingyu entered, she rushed forward and took my hand. Wanwan, how are you? You scared me to death earlier in the imperial study. She was genuinely frightened. Seeing me collapse had made her eyes red with worry. Liu Qingyu, usually gentle and elegant, had completely abandoned her composure when she saw me faint. Thank you for worrying about me so much, my dear Qingyu. I smiled at her, and we owe thanks to His Highness the Crown Prince too, for catching you before you could hit the ground. When Liu Qingyu said these words, I turned to look at Shen Yuanyi beside me. It was nothing, no need to be polite. Shen Yuanyi crossed his arms, looking indifferent. Since His Highness the Crown Prince says there's no need for politeness, then I'll truly take it to heart. Great kindness needs no thanks. This guy is still so full of himself. After I finished speaking, he looked utterly aggrieved. Still, many thanks for saving my life, Your Highness. When I have time, I'll treat you all to a meal at Yunzue Tower. I've always been clear about these things. Gratitude where it's due won't be forgotten. As long as you know it, Shen Yuanyi said with a haughty pout. Yes, of course. After some more conversation, The medicine had cooled enough, with bold determination. I pinched my nose and downed the entire bowl in one go. The bitter taste made my face scrunch up, but as I felt something at my lips, I instinctively took it in my mouth. A thread of sweetness spread. It was the flavor of preserved fruit. Shen Yuanyi had specially brought some newly made preserved fruit from the imperial kitchen, right after I finished my medicine. He popped one into my mouth as I chewed. I gave him a thumbs up. This kid sure knew how to read the room. I said, "Your Highness the Crown Prince, you're always butting heads with Wanwan. How come you're so kind today, even bringing her preserved fruit to eat?" Liu Qingyu watched our interaction suspiciously and added, "You didn't put laxatives in there, did you?" When Shen Yuanyi heard the first half of the sentence, his expression still showed a hint of guilt. But upon hearing the second half, he jumped up in anger. "How come bringing something automatically means I have ulterior motives? Can't I just bring her something?" "Of course you can." I secretly squeezed Qingyu's hand and gave her a subtle wink. Liu Qingyu caught my hint and chimed in, Yes, you're being kind. It's me who's judging a noble heart with petty thoughts." The Crown Prince has always been magnanimous. He naturally wouldn't hold it against Qingyu. "Right, Your Highness." I then smiled and turned my gaze to Shen Yuanyi. Seeing my smiling face, Shen Yuanyi cleared his throat awkwardly and said, "Naturally." After another incense stick's worth of time passed, my father came to drag Shen Yuanyi off for training. Liu Qingyu also stood up to bid me farewell, reminding me to rest well before leaving. After watching them leave, I finally had time to ponder my current situation. The plot should now be following the storyline of the female lead's daughter. But why did I suddenly faint today? Thinking carefully, Murong Shui and I weren't particularly involved at most. We were just ordinary classmates. Is it because I suddenly awakened and didn't follow the plot? So this is my punishment. Then what is my plot supposed to be? Competing with the female lead for the male lead. Perhaps I can find an opportunity to test this out tomorrow. The next day, I went to the palace as usual. As soon as I entered the study hall, my classmates gathered around to ask about my condition. Even those who usually like to surround Murong Shui came running over. I could naturally tell who was sincere and who was merely feigning affection. After all, I was the imperial astrologer's daughter. People had to at least maintain appearances. Until Shen Yuanyi and Jiang Tongming walked in. Those two usually scorned such gatherings the most, yet now they came to stand by my side. "Yesterday your face was as pale as paper. Why aren't you resting properly today?" Shen Yuanyi frowned with concern as he asked. "Leng Wn, you wouldn't believe it, the moment you started falling, I just felt a gust of wind, and His Highness the Crown Prince appeared right beside you." Jiang Tongming exaggerated his expression, speaking as if it were absolutely true. Listening to Jiang Tongming's words, I found it hard to believe. Was this really my arch-rival? Something felt off about this situation. If you'd hit your head, there wouldn't be anyone left who could compete with me for first place. Seeing his friend spill everything, Xuanyi quickly tried to cover for himself. After hearing his words, I nodded understandingly. Now this made sense. Smiling, I patted his shoulder and said, "Don't worry, even if I hit my head, I can still study well. I'll definitely take first place in today's quiz." Jiang Tongming listened to our conversation. Rubbing his forehead and shaking his head, Liu Qingyu seemed to have thought of something, tugged at Jiang Tongming's sleeve, and then the two went aside to talk. Today, the Grand Tutor dismissed class early, so Liu Qingyu, Xuanyi Yi, Jiang Tongming, and I made plans to go for an outing. "Sister Leng Wn, can I speak with you alone for a moment?" Murong Shui blocked my path and said. Liu Qingyu wanted to say something, but I stopped her. I looked at her and replied, "All right." I followed her to a secluded spot. "Miss Murong, what did you want to tell me?" "Leng Wn, ever since I was born, a voice has told me that I am this world's female lead, and everything revolves around me." I listened to her words, maintaining a calm expression while my heart was in turmoil. How could she possibly know? Does this damned world favor the female lead to such an extent? Seeing my silence, she continued, "Before entering the imperial study, that voice told me again that my destined male lead and silent protector would appear, Prince Brother and Tongming Brother. But Prince Brother has you by his side, and even Jiang Tongming treats me coldly. Leng Wn, how dare you compete with the female lead?" "Miss Murong, what are you talking about?" I don't understand, stop pretending with me. I know you're from another world. If you don't want to be erased by this world, stay away from Crown Prince brother. With that, she left, leaving me standing alone on the spot. As expected, I'm still destined to be just a supporting female character. I exhaled a heavy breath and walked out. What did she say to you? Liu Qingyu stepped forward, linking her arm with mine as she asked. Just some academic questions she was too shy to ask in front of everyone. I casually made up an excuse. Since when did she become so studious? All right, let's hurry up and not waste this beautiful spring day. With a bright smile, I urged them to move along. Upon reaching the outskirts, the servants had already prepared everything. After changing into riding attire, the four of us mounted our horses. Jiang Tongming and Liu Qingyu rode ahead, while I leisurely trailed behind. What exactly did Murong Shui say to you earlier? Shen Yuan Yi took a moment to catch up with me. Don't try to fool me, something's clearly on your mind. Your Highness knows me so well. Meeting his gaze, I smiled faintly. She said she likes you and told me to stay away. Seeing me smile at him, his ears turned red, but when he heard that Murong Shui liked him, his brows furrowed. Who asked for her affection? Then who do you want to be liked by? I gazed at the distant scenery and countered. Shen Yuanyi remained silent, but I could feel his eyes on me. We practically grew up together. How could our youthful rivalry not have fostered some mutual admiration? But he's the male lead, and his destined partner is the female lead Murong Shui. However, Murong Shui's words reminded me to avoid becoming that supporting female character. I need to speed up the progress on the fake death potion I've been researching. Originally meant for Mother, now it'll have to be for myself. Over these years, Father has finally stopped being so wooden. He's learned to reject Yun Chanxian and cherish Mother instead. Their relationship has grown even closer than before. If Mother and Father can live happily together, that would naturally be for the best. Let me be an unfilial daughter for now. Once the female lead storyline concludes, I'll return. Upon returning from our trip, we heard news from the capital. It wasn't exactly earth-shattering, just the Duke's kept mistress kneeling outside the Duke's residence with their children, begging the Duchess to let her enter the household. The illegitimate son was only a few months younger than the legitimate daughter of the Duke's household, Murong Shui. When Yun Chanxian found out, she fainted from anger. To prevent that mother and son from entering the household, Murong Shui even threatened to take her own life. The Duke's household was thrown into chaos. But the mistress ultimately got her wish and entered the household after all. After all, apart from Murong Shui, Yun Chanxian had no other children. While the mistress had borne the Duke's household a son, however, what I didn't expect was that when Yun Chanxian woke up, instead of confronting Murong Yu, she requested a meeting with my father. In recent years, the imperial preceptor, my father, had little contact with Yun Chanxian, and when they did meet, it was always with polite detachment. But now, her husband had taken a concubine, and she turned to my father instead. This matter was also discovered by my mother. The place where Yun Chanxian arranged to meet my father was the very spot where they had first met years ago. My mother secretly followed them there, and when she returned, she was utterly heartbroken. This happened while I was still in the pharmacy, and I had finally succeeded in developing the fake death potion. Mother's personal maid, Yundao, came to find me and told me the whole story. After hearing it, I rushed to Mother's courtyard. She was just sitting blankly in the pavilion in her yard, staring at the flowers my father had planted for her with his own hands. Mother, Sister Yundao told me everything. Men are all worthless, don't be sad. I walked over and hugged her. Wanwan, Mother is fine. Don't speak of your father like that. He didn't agree. At that time, Yun Chanxian tearfully complained to Leng Yanchen about Murong Yu's heartlessness, insisting on divorcing him. She even confessed that since Leng Yanchen's marriage, she had discovered her own special feelings for him. But Leng Yanchen was already married and refused to meet her alone. That was why she ended up marrying Murong Yu. Yet she later heard that Leng Yanchen had gotten drunk on the night of her wedding. As she spoke, she suddenly embraced Leng Yanchen, declaring she didn't want to miss her chance anymore. Even being his concubine would satisfy her. Naturally, Leng Yanchen pushed her away and refused her proposal. But these matters still stirred up Mother's sorrow. Her marriage had never been of her own will, from beginning to end. Yet over the years, Leng Yanchen treated her well. He respected her wishes, knowing she loved flowers, and personally sought out rare seeds to plant in her courtyard. When she was pregnant, aware she didn't want to see him, he would sneak in at midnight to check her pulse. Even during her difficult labor, he disregarded taboos and rushed into the delivery room. His drunkenness back then wasn't because of love either. He had already let go of those feelings when he married her. That day, he got drunk drinking with the emperor, which both the emperor and empress had already explained. He truly was a good man. She should trust him. Seeing mother's sorrow, I didn't know how to comfort her, so I could only try various ways to cheer her up. Due to matters concerning the duke's residence, Murong Shui hadn't appeared for several days. Arriving earlier than usual this day to organize my studies beforehand, I unexpectedly saw the male lead comforting the crying female lead, who then nestled into his arms. I turned and ran away. Even though I had warned myself repeatedly that Shen Yuanyi was the male lead, why did it still hurt so much to see him? When I returned home, I found my mother wiping away tears. "Mother, what's wrong?" My mother remained silent, so I turned to Yun Dao and asked, "Young miss, that Yun Qianqian has still entered the manor. What, if this is truly the case? Mother, let's leave, Wanwan. This simply won't do." Mother's face showed clear disapproval. "Mother, I understand that leaving alive would bring shame upon the Prime Minister's residence, but what if we were to leave through unfortunate circumstances?" "Wanwan, what do you mean?" "Here are 2 pills of feigned death. After taking them, the body will stiffen and breathing will cease, but after 12 hours, will revive." I shook a porcelain vial. Mother looked at the medicine in my hand and finally made up her mind. "All right, Wanwan, mother will leave with you." 3 days later, news spread that the state preceptor's wife had accidentally fallen into the water, and the state preceptor's daughter had also slipped in while trying to save her mother. When they were rescued, both had already lost their breath. When Leng Yanchen received the news, he froze in disbelief, but when he saw the 2 bodies, he collapsed to his knees on the spot. With trembling hands, he lifted the white cloth, revealing Shen Mujin's pale face. Beside her lay their daughter. He burst into tears. In just 2 more months, it would have been Wanwan's birthday. He and his wife had finally come to understand each other's hearts, yet now, everything was destroyed. By the time Wanyanyi arrived, my corpse was already being placed into the coffin. His face was filled with grief, barely able to control himself. He could only gasp for air, struggling to calm down. He had everyone leave and walked up to my coffin himself. "Wanwan, I came too late." His voice trembled. He was already on his way, just a little too late. He took out a jade hairpin from his robe and placed it in my hair. "I meant to give this to you on your birthday. Wait for me, I will avenge you." A tear fell onto my forehead, but I, devoid of sensation, could not feel it at all. The funeral at the state preceptor's residence was hastily arranged. While everyone was still immersed in grief, Yun Dao led a group to dig up the freshly buried grave overnight. The coffin was pried open, and the body was carried out. After moving the body onto the carriage, Yun Dao paid hush money and then drove the carriage out of the city. 12 hours later, the person in the carriage twitched their fingers slightly, then opened their eyes.